Hello, Sharswood family. It is Miss LeCompte here, and I wanted to share this book with you. It's all about Memorial Day. And I'll be honest with you, I really did not know the history of Memorial Day. I really didn't know that much about it other than, it's a day where we honor people in the armed forces who have lost their lives protecting our country. So I started doing a little research just for my own information, and I found this book. Now, it's pretty long, so I'm not going to read all of it to you, but I found it to be very interesting, and I think you'll really find it interesting too. So it's called Let's Celebrate Memorial Day, and we'll start here. A very special holiday is celebrated on the last Monday in May, Memorial Day. It is the day we honor all the brave men and women in our armed forces who died while fighting to protect our country, our freedoms, and us. How did this important American holiday come into being? So, this is what I found so interesting. This is how it all started. How Memorial Day began. From 1861 to 1865, the American Civil War was fought. The northern states did not want to continue allowing slavery, but 11 southern states did. The southern states withdrew from the United States and formed a new country, the Confederate States of America. President Abraham Lincoln refused to recognize this new country. So the North's Union soldiers and the South's Confederate soldiers went to war. When the war ended, the United States was united again, and slavery would soon be ended. But over 500,000 soldiers had died fighting on the two sides of the war. Far more soldiers that have died in any other American war. The whole country grieved. Decoration Day. During and after the Civil War, graves of fallen soldiers on both sides were decorated in honor of their sacrifices. In 1868, General John Logan issued a proclamation. Decoration Day should be held on May 30th every year. He chose that date because flowers would be in bloom and could be used to decorate the graves of all those who died in the Civil War. So I think that is so cool. The reason why they chose May is because that's when the most flowers are in bloom. And Memorial Day originally was not called Memorial Day, it was called Decoration Day because people were decorating graves of people who died in the Civil War. A large observance was held that year at Arlington National Cemetery near Washington, D.C. Speeches were given, followed by people placing flowers on both Union and Confederate graves while singing hymns. Hymns are like religious songs, and saying prayers. And this here is Arlington National Cemetery, and you can see it's just thousands and thousands of graves. And Arlington National Cemetery is only for people who have passed away in our armed forces. Okay, so the annual ceremony at Soldiers National Cemetery in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, also began in 1868. So it happened in the same year as Decoration Day started. Gettysburg was the scene of the Civil War's most famous battle. 7,000 soldiers died, more than in any other battle. Gettysburg is in Pennsylvania. It's pretty far away, but you could definitely drive there if you're ever interested in visiting Gettysburg. There's a lot of history there. In July of 1913, veterans of the Union and Confederate armies gathered in Gettysburg to mark the 50-year anniversary of this battle, the Battle of Gettysburg. It was called a blue-gray reunion because the Union soldiers' uniforms were blue and the Confederate uniforms were gray. There were speeches, parades, and reenactments of the battle. So, a reenactment of a battle means that they have people dressed up like basically pretending to act out how the battle went. And they still have reenactments of battles today. Now, I know these captions are really hard to read, but this one says left, it's a monument at Gettysburg, and then below and right are people at the Blue-Gray reunion in 1913. Decoration Day changes to Memorial Day. Decoration Day gradually became known as Memorial Day, a name first used in 1882. After the end of the First World War in 1918, the holiday also changed from honoring only those who died in the Civil War. It now honored members of the military who died in any American war. Okay, and I'm going to skip this page because, like I said, this is a pretty long book, but this is just Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts honoring again at Arlington National Cemetery. Okay, the National Holiday Act of 1971. In 1971, Congress moved Memorial Day from May 30th, because remember, before it was on May 30th, no matter what day of the week that was, it's always on May 30th. But they changed it to the last Monday in May. Many people feel this change led to viewing the new 3-day weekend as the unofficial beginning of summer. So people often celebrate with picnics and camping trips. Swimming pools open. Stores hold Memorial Day sales. With so much going on, people sometimes forget the real reason for the holiday. And I confess, boys and girls, that was me. I'm telling you, I often thought of Memorial Day as, the unofficial start of summer, a time when I'm barbecuing and being with family. And of course, it's wonderful to, celebrate holidays with families. But it's true, I kind of really did forget that we're here to honor people who died fighting for us. So, this is interesting. National Moment of Remembrance. This is what they did to try to fix this problem that they described on this page that, people started kind of forgetting what it was all about. So in 2000, Congress passed a resolution to help restore the true meaning of Memorial Day. The National Moment of Remembrance invites all Americans to stop for a moment of silence at exactly 3 o'clock p.m. local time on Memorial Day. During this moment of silence, we are asked to remember all those who died defending our country's freedoms. This is one way we can put the memorial back in Memorial Day. So I thought that was pretty cool. I'm going to skip here, and I wanted to show you some of the different memorials around our country that are for specific wars or conflicts. So this says the First World War, 1917 to 1918. The National World War I Museum and Memorial is in Kansas City, Missouri, which I thought was interesting because most of these memorials are in Washington, D.C. This one is in Kansas City. In 1926, more than 150,000 people gathered to see the Liberty Memorial Tower dedicated by President Calvin Coolidge. Museum exhibits are below the Memorial Tower and in the buildings on either side. So these buildings here are museums. And at night, steam rises from the top of the tower. Red lights make the steam look like fire. Pretty cool. And then this is for the Second World War from 1941 to 1945. The World War II Memorial is in Washington, D.C. A wall containing more than 4,000 gold stars pays tribute to the 400,000 Americans who died in this war. That's pretty cool. And then it says two pavilions. I'm skipping around a little bit, but two pavilions represent the Atlantic and Pacific fronts on which American forces fought. So the front is like the area where there's a lot of fighting. Oh, this is my favorite one. Look at how interesting this memorial is. It's like life-sized statues. Korean conflict, that's 1950 to 1953. The Korean War Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C. contains a patrol squad, 19 stainless steel statues of soldiers walking through a field. A black granite wall displays over 2,400 images of the land, sea, and air troops who supported the foot soldiers. One part of the granite wall is inscribed, "Freedom is not free." And I just think this is such an interesting and powerful way to remember our soldiers, to have these statues, and it looks like they're, really moving through the fields. It's really neat. And then this here is the Vietnam Conflict Memorial. That was from 1955 to 1975. It's a long time, 20 years. The V-shaped Vietnam Veterans Memorial is also in Washington, D.C. The wall is polished black granite with a mirror-like surface. On it are listed the names of the more than 58,000 Americans who died or went missing in the Vietnam War. Okay, and then this last one that they talk about is a memorial for the Middle East conflicts and worldwide conflicts. And so this is ongoing, right? Because unfortunately, there are still, of course, members of our armed forces who are dying to protect our country. So it started in 1979, but there's no end date. The Middle East Conflicts War Memorial is in, I want to say Marseille. I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly, Illinois. So here's another one that's not in Washington, D.C. The wall of granite panels was built to honor the thousands of women and men in our armed forces who have died in worldwide conflicts since 1979. Every year, the names of the women and men who have died during the previous year serving our country are etched into the granite slabs right after Memorial Day. So, like I said, this is ongoing. So they, collect the names of the people who have passed away at the end of every year, and then they'll inscribe it or etch it onto the stone. So those are some of the different big memorials for specific conflicts. I just thought that was really interesting. Um, so I want to just kind of skip. Oh, this was great. This is the last thing that I'll read to you guys. I hope you're finding this as interesting as I did. So Memorial Day and Veterans Day. Now, I don't know about you, but I do kind of get these holidays confused. I'm ashamed to admit it. So it says two important national holidays honor our women and men in the military. Memorial Day on the last Monday in May honors all those who died while serving in the United States Armed Forces, particularly those who died in battle. Veterans Day on November 11th honors everyone who has served in the military, both the living and the dead. Similar events are held on both holidays: parades, ceremonies, concerts, school programs, and poppy distributions. Now, I skipped over this part, but a poppy is a red flower. If you're interested in learning about why the poppy is sort of a symbol of these two holidays, definitely Google it because it is interesting. But it is important to remember the difference between the two holidays. So, Veterans Day is honoring everyone who's served in the military, whether they died or not. Memorial Day is only for those who died while protecting our country by serving in the armed forces. On Memorial Day, we think about the more than 1 million men and women who died defending our country, our freedoms, and us. We feel deeply grateful to every one of them. Many of us have family members who died defending America and its ideals. On Memorial Day, we can share stories about them. We can look at photographs or letters or personal items they left behind. And we can try to imagine how much they loved our country, so much that they were willing to die protecting it. Freedom is not free. So, again, I hope that you found some of this information as interesting as I did. I hope that everyone takes a moment to remember the people who passed away protecting our freedoms. And happy Memorial.